Chit, oh Chit, what is going on there? Chatamaran, hello everybody, and welcome back to another Therapy Thursday. Today is Thursday, obviously, January 25th, 2024. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with what Therapy Thursday is, let me turn that down so I can hear my own thoughts. Every Thursday we try to get together here on Twitch, and basically it's a place where we encourage people to come in with any mental health questions or topics or any issues that they might be dealing with, and have us discuss it here live for them. You might be thinking, well, what qualifies you to be offering any sort of mental health advice? Well, I can tell you right now, I have a computer. But that's not the reason. The reason why people would want to come here is because I am joined by my sister, Asteria, who is a professional licensed therapist who specializes in trauma and addiction. She's a family and marriage counseling therapist. I don't know all the technical terms, but she's a professional. She's got her master's degree and all that good stuff. She knows her shit. All right, so there have been a few times where we have helped a few people, and it's great. I'm just glad that we were able to do that, because we know that not everybody has access to certain resources. So this is just basically a space for people that don't have resources, or if they do have resources but they're just not working, this is just another option, because it's better than having no options. So that's pretty much it. That being said, let us get Asteria in here. Hello, darling.
Next time, I'm just gonna sit and I'm just like, you know what? I'll join. I will give a minute penalty.
Oh, what do you mean a 1 minute penalty?
1 minute penalty, flag on the other side for startling the players.
That's not going to work in the NFL. It's like the referee jumps out, boo!
1 minute penalty.
Penalty.
Like, where'd you get that little yellow card? It's like, because I'm scared. Hi, Chad. Hi, Kilton. Happy Thursday. Here we are again.
Yeah.
Yay. How are you?
You said it.
Fantastic. Me too.
That bad, huh?
being said, so let me get into my spiel and then we'll get into it.
All right.
Okay. Hello, chat. If you are new here, why did it take you so long? But if you've already been here, then you already know who I am.
I know who to blame for taking so long. You can blame the algorithms on that one.
Oh, okay. Well, freak you, algorithm.
Yeah, frick you. Damn algorithms.
Well, nonetheless, I'm Asteria. I am a marriage and family therapist that works out of the state of California. My background is in trauma, dissociative disorders, depressive disorders, and anxiety and personality disorders, and also background in substance use diagnoses. I like to use this space with Kilted to bring resources of mental health and support to the public, because I'm fully aware of how expensive and hard it is to get resources. And so how can we give back to the people? This way. And anytime that you give it a listen, you're spreading along the news to the next person, and it just keeps on going from there. So tell your friends, join the chat, and in this chat we talk about topics related to mental health. I will talk as much as I can about various topics. I don't know everything, so don't come at me sideways for not knowing everything. Though I do like to bring up about concepts related to relationships, to various diagnoses, stress-related factors, trauma, substances, addiction as a whole. I also like to talk about like why you might be having a hard day. Love to hear about all of that. Talk about factors related to grief and loss. Um, Talk about various concepts to sex and gender specific factors, because that's also something I focus on. So these are all different things that I talk about and we talk about here. So feel free to put your questions, comments, and concerns into the chat and we'll answer them if we can. There are some guidelines of what we do and don't talk about here. This is not the space for diagnosing. We could talk about diagnoses, but I do not do diagnosing here. So if you think that your mom is narcissistic,
She probably is. Yay! Me.
so let's just assume that she is. 2, I'm off the clock. I don't have to sound professional. Fuck you.
Jesus.
Disrespectfully too. But ultimately it's true, because again, this is not the space where I have to put on my therapist voice or my therapist approach, because again, this is an open area for discussion for us to talk about these different things. So again, if it doesn't sound like I'm talking like a therapist, it's because I'm not getting paid to be one right now. So you're just getting good old Asteria. Lastly, because I am a mandated reporter in the state of California, and each state looks differently for mandated reporting, by the way. So in the state of California, there are 3 protected classes. I have very black and white, no ands or buts. I have to protect that apply to my clients and their people. And that includes people that are under the age of 18, people that are legally dependent adults, and also people that are 65 and older. Because of this, just on an ethical note, we can talk about suicide in here, though I will hold the line that I will not be talking about suicide with anyone that's under the age of 18, just for ethical purposes. So if you are needing any support in regards to suicidality and needing support, again, please feel free to reach out to a crisis line. You're more than welcome to text the for the people in the United States, you're welcome to text the suicide and crisis lifeline, and you do call 988 or text the number 988, and you can be provided to confidential support regarding suicidal crises and emotional distress. However, that is not the space here. So other than that, feel free to bring the various topics into the discussion. Kilton and I will just kind of be chatting about various things. We'll go ahead and put a nice pause on our discussion the times that we see your questions, comments, concerns in the chat, and welcome to Therapy Thursday.
Yay! And you know what? I was thinking about that whole 18 and under suicidal discussion stuff. Basically, I kind of want to put it this way. I might try to remember this, but my brain likes to come up with good ideas and then forget them immediately. But anytime that I kind of hear that someone under 18 is like, oh, I'm having suicidal thoughts. You know what? If you're having suicidal thoughts and under 18, let's put it this way. You're saying the movie sucks and it's still the opening credits.
Yeah, very much so. Like, now I don't want to discredit. I get it. A lot of that emotional distress, and I kind of like want to validate folks that are under the age of 18 that may experience suicidality because various backgrounds, various things, and so forth. Though I always would encourage to reach out for support and reaching out to hotlines, getting resources, getting support before going to measures where like you're going or falling into permanent solutions. Because again, it's really, really important to understand that although there could be measures related to suicidality, a lot of times, especially with the advancements of science and technology, a lot of times people are getting support and they're having like the suicidal actions don't follow through. And a lot of times, because again, I want to encourage this skill that's called playing out the tape, where if what are the chances are you do engage in this action and it doesn't follow through, what happens is that it actually impacts life in a very even a more distressing way, because it impacts shame, guilt, it impacts relationships of trust and care and connection around you. And so these are things that you also risk in those places. So I encourage to lean into resources and support to figure out what's going on to this emotional distress and seeing if you can get the support to those means before leaning into permanent solutions for temporary problems.
Yes. And also at that
Yeah.
age, this thing isn't fully developed.
Yeah.
You got to get this thing to keep growing more, because it's still downloading Windows 97 or whatever the hell it's using. Windows
it's
XP.
95.
No, it's still on Windows XP. You gotta wait till you get updated to like Windows 11. So.
Honestly, though, that's really important, because and that's why I want to validate folks that are under the age of 18, especially because it's like, I get it. The system is just running on emotion purely. And so everything feels like everything's on danger, or like where your life feels threatened. I understand. I still would encourage you to go get resources, because many times I even have clients themselves that would have these thoughts and engage in actions at a younger age, and when they got older, they're like, I just was looking like what I was truly looking for was support, care, understanding, and validation, and it's really hard to kind of put words to needs, especially at a young age, and especially in societal or in socialized areas where we get shamed for expressing our wants and needs. So what I always have to emphasize is that needs are non-negotiable. If you need support and you need care and trust and predictability and stability, that's non-negotiable. So I encourage you to find those avenues of folks to give those in a very non-judgmental and open and helpful way.
Yes.
So yeah. Yes.
Fun stuff.
Okay, how are you in that? I know you shared, but tell the folks more.
It has been very, very tough for me the last week post therapy, and it has nothing to do with therapy. Honestly, it had nothing to do with that. It's just shit that's happened since.
Oh yeah.
A lot of things happened the last couple of days. One thing that I was kind of, let me go through yesterday. Or actually, let's just go through yesterday. So yesterday, get up, go do my stuff, gym, whatever, go to work. And I'm at work, and there's a lot of people that showed up to the office that I do not like having around. And they were all there, and they were all just in and out of my office, just in my space where I don't want them. And it just caused, I don't know if you want to call it anxiety, but I was extremely uncomfortable and constantly on edge all day. And then, was this yesterday? Yeah. And then at one point of the day, I was like, okay, I'm going to go get my hair cut because I got an appointment. So I walked over across the street to where my barber is. And was waiting there. I got there like 5-10 minutes early, whatever. And the barber's sitting there cutting a gentleman's hair. And this guy is old. He is really old. Turns out, I found out somehow, he's 83, I think they said. Yeah, 83. And he does not look good. And she's finishing up. She's like, does this look good? And, he's sitting there just like kind of not responding. He's starting to kind of like slump over. And I was like, oh God, here we go. Medical emergency. And like they ended up calling 911 and all that stuff. And ambulance comes out, has to take him out of there. It turns out like his blood sugar crashed or something. His blood pressure dropped. What's up, Combo? Welcome. So, they ended up, he didn't die or anything, but they got him out of there and all that stuff. And, They left, everything got back to normal. Okay, it's my turn to go get my haircut. And I was just kind of thinking about it afterwards. Like, I'm sitting there in this barber shop with just a couple of people. There's like one other person waiting. There's a few people, like, you know, in the chairs already. And then everyone's like, oh, you got to help this guy, help this guy. Like, the people working there, like, doing their best to help him, make sure he's like okay and all that. And I'm just sitting there watching it. I'm like looking over. I go, that guy's about to die. And I just go right back to my phone, scrolling like it's just an everyday occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just, I was like, and I thought about it later. I was like, this is not a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just sitting there, I look over. I'm like, that guy's probably going to die. Anyway, check it out. I'm playing Candy Crush. Do. So, there was that. And then, oh, God damn it, I forgot this crap happened. And then, so finished my haircut, went back to work. Those people were all still there. They all ended up staying late. I was like, whatever, I gotta go home. So I was heading home, stopped at the grocery store. A lot of people in the grocery store, a lot of people on the road, a lot of uncertainty on how to be a person in public. And, you know, just people. So I go to the grocery store, get my stuff. I'm standing in line, and there's a person that doesn't know how to operate the credit card machine. So that's already frustrating me. And then I hear a voice behind me that says, hey, how's it going? Turned around, and it was someone that I don't want to talk to, that I know. And I was like, great, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't like this person. This person just told me off like not too long ago. I was like, hey, what are you up to, trying to hang out with them? And they're like, yeah, I'm not interested in talking to you anymore. And then they come up and like start chatting it up. I was like, I was in a space where I was like, I need somebody to hang out with, and you just said, I don't want to talk to you. Like, please don't bother me. So I deleted all their contact information. And then they just decided to come up behind me and strike up a conversation. I was like, you could have easily avoided me and not had that happen. So I had to deal with that. And then, you know, get back in my car, drive home. And when I walked into the door, man, I just fucking lost it. I closed the door and I broke down. I could not handle the shit from the day.
Yeah.
And it was just rough. And it's just been kind of like that all week. But yesterday was probably the heaviest of it. And I'm kind of stressed out because school starts next week. This is just a normal week.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, let's see what's combo say. I gotta check. Wait, I got to check out Gladian stream. I haven't been on Magic the Gathering Arena yet, but been sleeping. Oh, for sure. Yeah, just, you know, take your time. There's no rush. We'll do Magic probably sometime next week. But yeah, it's been tough.
Well, yeah, because that's what, like, ultimately it's like, I feel like one of the things that my therapist kind of brought up to my attention. So here you go, y'all. This one's on the house. And at least what you're sharing kind of reminds me of this, is that my therapist, and I was talking to my therapist about how I've been kind of like feeling a lot more lately and kind of like experiencing a lot more emotions and so forth, but it's also that I'm definitely have been feeling the wave of depression lately.
Right.
And I'm still feeling it, as much as people are like, oh, look, you look like you bounced back. I'm like, no. Like, I'm on autopilot right now. Like, I just need to get done with my job so I could go take a week off of completely breaking down, like a car on the side of the road. And so I'm like, don't confuse this. But I was like talking to my therapist about it, and I get to see her tomorrow, which I'm so excited.
Yay.
So she shared with me, I was like, I'm feeling so much more than I probably ever felt in my life, out like range wise of emotions, and just much more discomfort in like my feelings. It's like, I'm curious of like, what do you feel like this is saying about my progress and all the work I've been doing on for myself? And she comes to bring to my attention that the thing is that it's more than likely that I'm feeling a lot more and going through a lot more emotions because I was so accustomed to being desensitized from the world, from being exposed to just a lack of emotional understanding, you know, an abundance of emotional immaturity, a lot of distressing environments, and so forth. But now that my body feels safe enough to do so, it's not that I'm getting worse, it's that I'm actually feeling, period.
So you're
um,
filtering through the crap now.
so she said that ultimately that this is where's the misconception when it comes to getting treatment. This is what I want to share with everyone because I have to deal with this with my clients on the daily, is that when you go to therapy, you're not like, there is a misconception of the expectation that therapy equals you feeling better. Like, you're not, it's not to feel better. um it's that you're trying to get the skills and tools to managing life on life, like on life's like
Terms.
terms, yeah. And so you're not trying to avoid triggers, you're not trying to minimize discomfort, because the thing is like, that's something that comes with life. But what you're trying to do is that you're trying to learn how to manage it so that you can process the feelings, and so it doesn't take so much out of you all the time. And so the thing is that when you've experienced so much, you become so numb to things that you're like, oh, whatever, right? And you, when we equate that with feeling, like we equate feeling numb with feeling okay. However, in our bodies, like in getting more accustomed to our bodies, we do get more familiar with emotions. However, the other piece is that if we haven't learned how to manage our emotions, that now we're feeling the abundance of our emotions in the exact intensity of when we first initially ever experienced emotions. And now we have to do the next part of the journey, what she says for me, I'm on the next part of my journey where now I have to learn about putting parameters around my emotions so that I can feel them without them overwhelming or taking power away from me.
And how do you do that?
So,
Like, what do they mean by putting parameters around it? That's what I'm like trying to get at.
well, she's trying to emphasize that in putting around parameters, because again, the thing is, especially if you're an individual like me who came from a home that was very emotionally immature, emotionally underdeveloped, and in all honesty, is a lot of homes, because the whole thing of prioritizing emotional wellness and understanding is something very new in human history, because we've had to survive for so long that we didn't actually have to give a shit about how we felt. And we're living longer, so now we have to actually, I don't know, get to know ourselves, you know. um but the way that she's teaching me it is that I have to learn, in order to, one, increase the connection of the awareness of feelings within my body, two, not try to intellectualize it or just say, oh, this is how I think I'm feeling, because when you say I think I'm feeling this way, you're not, again, feeling it, you're thinking it, and you're trying to put it through the rational filter. um and three, what you're trying to do is you're trying to be aware about your relationship with emotions and seeing how you want to alter and change your relationship. The thing is that a lot of times we don't understand our emotion with different our relationship with different emotions. But the way that we could better understand our relationship with emotions is based on our comfort level and our awareness level when we see it being expressed in others. So I'm going to give this to you. If I ask you to think of an uncomfortable emotion, what's an uncomfortable feeling? What's an uncomfortable feeling that comes to mind?
Like, wait a minute, like talking to strangers or like something like that, or
Like,
like, wait a minute, like a
more so,
situation, or
like anger,
okay,
like
yeah, anger.
like anger or sadness or discomfort or frustration or hopelessness or like I don't know if
Loneliness.
you I would encourage right now actually for you to go in because I know you're in front of a computer
No, I'm not.
to go to
Just
go
kidding.
onto to go in front of and open up a tab and look up a feelings wheel.
All right. All right, chat. Prepare for some lag. Stupid computer and its lacking of streaming and internet all at the same time. A feelings wheel. That's one clean burning hell, boy, I tell you what. The feelings wheel. There's one called feelingswheel.com. Let's go there.
Why don't you look at that?
It's even got a
So
QR code.
when you go, oh dang, that's a good one. I'm in front of it too because I'm doing notes. But so the thing about the feelings wheel is what we're trying to do is that we're trying to expand our awareness of our feelings and not just put it into these very broad categories because we're not always capturing what's going on for ourselves, right? And
Right.
so that's why it's like it takes into these categories in the middle. So for anyone that's interested, you're welcome to pull up feelingswheel.com and it'll show you a feelings wheel. And then if you see it that there's different colors associated with like more like generalized feelings such as happy, surprised, bad, fearful, angry, disgusted, sad, right? But as it goes into these other circles, it starts to get more specific, right?
Sorry, Chad, I can't pull
And
it up. Go
so
ahead.
it's like happy has a breakdown of like playful, content, interested, proud, accepted, powerful, peaceful, trusting, and optimistic. But if it breaks it down, like let's just say the playful, it'll go even more specific to aroused or cheeky, or content can be broken down into free or joyful. Interested is broken down to curious or inquisitive, and so forth, right? And
Okay, yeah.
so I want you to kind of take a moment to look at these different feelings and ultimately try to identify one of these that you feel either uncomfortable when you experience it yourself or uncomfortable if you interpret it being experienced in somebody else.
Okay, so you want me to choose one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm going to go down the sad part of the wheel, which is broken up into lonely, vulnerable, despair, guilty, depressed, or hurt. And do you want me to just choose one, or?
Yeah, just one.
I'm going to go down the lonely side because that's my big one.
Okay. So lonely, right?
And that breaks up into isolated or abandoned.
So I'm trying to. You said isolated or abandoned.
Right.
Uh,
Combo says contentment. What did he say?
Contentment is under content is under happy.
Oh,
And that's
happy,
free.
content, or which is free or joyful.
Oh yeah,
Or,
so lonely
and or
goes into
joyful.
isolated or abandoned, so under sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what she's trying to say about putting parameters around this is first of all trying to identify and becoming more specific about your feelings rather than just putting into happy, surprised, bad, fearful, angry, disgusted, or sad. Getting specific so that you can start to better understand when your body is creating signals sent to you and the emotions that you correlate with said feeling, right? And then it's important to understand of like um it's important to understand that the way that you feel when you are like when the awareness that you have of self when you're feeling yourself or the way that you feel when you feel like you're interpreting in others already gives you an understanding of your relationship with that feeling. So with lonely, did you choose isolated or abandoned, or do you just want to stop at lonely for now?
I I can lean more towards the isolated side personally.
Oh, okay. What are signs that you recognize in your body when you're experiencing isolation? Then, what are signs that you interpret that isolation is something being experienced in others?
I don't know about the others one, because the whole isolation part kind of, sits on the mark of, well, there's no one else around, so I can't really, put that on to other people. Um, but you're saying, like, what do I feel with isolation?
Yeah, like what are signals from your body that when you experience these signals in your body, you're experiencing isolation?
Like, I get that, like, pit of the stomach feeling, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's that. I don't know what the technical term is for that. There's a lot of, like, clenching. Like, am I supposed to, like, bring up other feelings in this? Because that will eventually move its way over to, um, like, hopelessness.
We're focusing on what signals are in your body. So it's like
Like
you said,
physical
clenching in
signals.
your stomach. Yeah,
Yeah.
physical. Because again, we're talking. Okay, I don't know if you remember, and anyone that's new, here's a quick lesson because I can only say this one a little bit too much. Is that there's a difference between emotions and feelings. Do you remember what we said was the difference between emotions and feelings?
Not entirely. I remember having the conversation though.
Okay.
So
For
yeah, it's like I
anyone,
feel a pit in my stomach. I kind of, yeah, like things clench up.
okay. So emotions are the body's reaction as programmed to specific stimuli, right? So when our body gets signals or reminders or stimuli that hit certain buttons within us, it then sends these signals to our body to start emoting. So emoting would be emotions would be like your stomach clenching. It would be like heart palpitations. It would be, your face becoming flush, your hands starting to clench, your body crying and engaging in crying.
Right.
It could be your muscles tensing. It could be tension in your face and so forth, right? Those are emotions because you are emoting. That's why they're called like emojis and stuff like that. They don't just pop up the word of like feeling. It's like it gives a facial thing or a sign of like what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's just a representation. But feelings are the conscious experience of the bodily state during emotional activation. So for instance, I could say, if I said your stomach is clenching, your heart's beating fast, your face is red, and your hands feel a little bit or feel tension in them.
Right.
In the combination of these different emotions, what are feelings that you would associate with it? Stomach clenching, heart palpitations.
Like
Uh,
anxiety.
it could it could be anxiety. What are some other options?
The that the stress, whatever. The fight or flight thing, whatever.
Sure, that could be that, but again, it's like let's kind of get a little bit more specific. It could be anxious. It could be, let's go to the feelings wheel. It could be jealousy. It could be annoyance. It could be um it could be betrayal. It could be let's see. It could be pressure. It could be or feeling pressured. It could be feeling overwhelmed, you know? The thing is that it could be a combination of various and multiple options what that means in our body, right?
Right.
What ultimately decides what we're going through is what we connect as the feeling to the combination of what our body is telling us in relation to the information we have of what's causing our bodies emoting at the same time, right? So it's very situational based, right? However, there could still be similarities in how our bodies emote, and then what we equate is the feeling that we're going through. What
Right.
what my therapist is trying to emphasize is that if you've come from a background where you haven't had a chance to sit down and better understand what are the signals your body is telling you it's going through, to where you could identify what you're feeling and allowing space for that feeling to be experienced, that you are missing out on emotional awareness. And if you're missing out on emotional awareness, you haven't had a chance to better understand the foundation of how that feeling sits in your body. And sometimes, because of the intensity of certain feelings, sometimes we may not know how to put parameters, or that we know how to put kind of like a foundation around the intensity of these feelings. Therefore, we may be feeling emotions at such an intense level that it may cause us to engage in avoidance or harm to self or to others, because we haven't had a chance to be familiarized with these emotions and knowing when to reinforce self-management over the emotions. We may allow our emotions or our feelings to take too much power away from us.
Okay.
Okay. So here's one I will share with y'all. For a very long time, so back to the feelings wheel, I would avoid anger, period. That, well, like, but when we say, oh, I don't want to feel angry, let's just say, what we're saying is that we're not just we're not just preventing ourselves from feeling anger. We're also preventing ourselves from feeling let down, humiliated, bitter, mad, aggressive, frustrated, distant, or critical, or all the other extra ones related to it, between betrayal, resentment, fury, violated, annoyed, numb, even dismissive. And so anytime we have a feeling that we haven't had a chance to understand, what happens is that we are not getting an opportunity to ultimately to mentalize feelings, meaning we haven't had a chance to have an awareness and understanding of emotional states. And because of that, we experience what is called impaired emotional regulation, which means that one may be stuck in a painful, uncomfortable, or often unclear emotional state that resorts to a significant intensity, or even a a reaction that's disproportionate to the situation at hand, because our body feels like it needs to escape that because it's not familiar with it.
Right.
So the fact of the matter is, to kind of summarize it for anyone, is that whenever we try to avoid how we feel, we are reinforcing a disservice in ourselves to understand emotional regulation in ourselves, to understand how to interpret signs that from our body that we're feeling certain things. And it impacts our ability to empathize and connect with other people, because since we can't interpret in ourselves, we may have struggles of how we interpret in others, which impacts our ability to connect with other people. The other factor that I'll say, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is that when we don't have that development of the relationship of our emotions inside of us, oftentimes our body is sending out signals to tell us how we are feeling and what is going on within us. However, because we either have emotionally suppressed, or that we haven't had a chance to to become emotionally familiarize ourselves with our experiences, that we often miss the signals. And what that causes us to do is that it causes us to do stuff where we may either explode and just fucking lose our minds on everybody, or we can shut down at such a severe level that our body cuts all emotional ties with our body, because it's now going into the equivalence of safe mode, like a computer, because it got so overloaded, it shuts out everything. And it won't go online until it feels like it wants to go back online whenever that time comes.
Hmm.
And sometimes that could be a long time. Whatever a long time feels like to anybody. Like for me, I know enough about my body that I can no longer handle sudden, intense emotional environments in my life outside of my job. So that's why I don't tend to stay in those environments anymore, or that if it seems like the people around me may like ultimately continuously to have these very big emotional expressions and so forth, and they don't seem to be in a state or a place in their life where they would need to manage it or take care of themselves or have that self-awareness, I tend to protect my energy and not go into those environments anymore, because what happens is that it causes signals of distress in my body that are significantly uncomfortable to me. And so in order to show care and trust to myself, I listen to those signals and then I respond to them. And a lot of times I've gotten the message from folks of like, oh, wow, it's like you really can't handle me and take, or, and support me. And I was like, it's like, ultimately, what I'm also hearing is that like, you want me to hold these feelings for you, whereas it's going to be a matter of your own journey with your emotional awareness and support. So you you wouldn't encourage someone to be in an environment with constant instability because you feel like they need to sacrifice themselves to finding stability for others or for people outside of them. Would you? It's that it's about what my therapist likes to call healthy narcissism. And she says, contrary to popular belief, healthy narcissism truly does exist. Because if you are not listening to your body and you are constantly sacrificing self in the name of others and not prioritizing yourself, you are also showing your body a lack of self-care and self-importance that ultimately will be not only the demise to the relationship that you have with self, but also the demise that you have with relationship with others, because when you don't listen to these signals, you also risk other elements such as shame, guilt, resentment, and so forth. So there is an importance of listening to your body and knowing when to say when.
Like, like the more I hear about like all these different like things you have to watch out for, this and that, it just I don't know if this is part of the process, but the more I hear about what needs to be done and what you need to look for and how you need to, like, you know, pay attention to this and that, yada yada, about yourself and how your brain's working, it the more bottomless this pit seems to go.
That's one way to see it, but that's not the approach I see it as. But you're welcome to talk more about why you think it's a bottomless pit.
Because I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I understand that. That makes sense. And then you go, okay, so this is what I have to do. But then you get there and you go, oh no, there's just another door that opens up into a whole new section. And you go, okay, shit. Well, then you get to the end of that, you're like, okay, I think I finally figured it out now. Then you just open up the next door. You're like, fuck, like, when does this damn tunnel end? Is there an end to it? Because it just seems like the more I understand, the more insurmountable the task at hand becomes.
Well, what I hear when you're saying that is that I feel like you're looking for an answer that's just gonna stick. And like there's just an answer that just stays, right? The thing about being a human is that the thing that is the most consistent thing or factor about being a human is inconsistency, in that there's always change.
Right.
And that humans are constantly evolving. And so when you are checking in with yourself and allowing space for self-awareness, you're allowing the ebb and flow of allowing life to meet you where you are, rather than just kind of planting your feet and saying, this is good enough, which is fine, that's a choice. But the waves are just going to crash on you and break you down, and they're going to break you down the easier the more that you plant your feet and saying, I refuse to, to understand with what's going on and allow the ebb and flow. Now, what I want to also emphasize is that folks that experience trauma commonly struggle with flexibility. There's this great book, so I will always plug this book for anybody that is on their journey of self-awareness and support and understanding, or would just like to challenge their understanding of what trauma truly is, contrary to common belief. The book is called The Body Keeps the Score, where brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma, and it's by an individual named Bessel van der Kolk. So Bessel space VAN space DER space KOLK. Okay, and he talks about his journey about understanding what truly is trauma, right? Well, the thing is that he tries to emphasize, gosh, I wish I had my copy with me, but he tries to emphasize is that when you start to heal from environments that didn't allow emotional awareness and attunement and reinforcement, you also may struggle with challenging flexibility. And when you start to heal from trauma, this constant checking in of door, of like, oh, there's the next door, instead of being like, ugh, there's another door, it's kind of like, oh, just matter of factly, there is going to be another door. Um, and it allows the welcoming of like, hey, what's going to go, where is this next door going to open to the next part of my journey, right? But a lot of times, because folks that have experienced trauma have not had a chance of understanding stability and the foundation of trust and support, when change happens, they see it as a threat to self. And they struggle with elements such as flexibility and creativity and empathy. Because what it takes in doing so is that it's a reflection to your body that you're no longer in the trauma. And a lot of times our body tries to convince us that, especially if we experience trauma, it tries to continuously try to tell us and trying to reinforce us to say that we're in the trauma because it's fearful to let its guard down in the case of getting hurt again. So when you are in your process of healing further down the road, I believe, and I wholeheartedly believe this when I say that it won't be seen as an endless pit. What I will see it is that you're seeing the road ahead of you as the next part of, or the next door into the next part of your journey.
I understand what you're saying, and unfortunately, I don't see it the same way.
Well, that doesn't surprise me with what I just said.
Yeah, and because I feel like we're probably not on the same page about what I'm saying, because I understand the concept of, you always have to make tweaks and changes to things. But it's, in my view, it seems, well, let's say, I don't know if I want to use like the door thing anymore, but let's say if you have like a bunch of corridors that you're looking around, like, which way do I go? You see light coming from one of them somewhere. It's dim, it's far away, but you're like, well, I see something down there. We got to head that way. And yes, it may keep forking and forking, but eventually the light should get brighter. It might take a while, but you got to keep making some, like, okay, left turn, right turn, blah, 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 and go down this road. But it seems like the further, at least in my understanding, the more I'm learning, it just seems like it's getting darker and darker and darker. Like I'm getting further away from feeling better the more I understand it. And I know you say that that's part of the process, but it's just like you said, the more I'm like starting to understand it, the more it seems like now there's no top of this mountain, or there's no, like, the light was there and now it's getting dimmer the more I understand it. And it's just dissipating. It's just getting worse.
Well, that's where I think it goes more into your personal journey. Like I don't think that's gonna get answers that I'm gonna give you here, or like that it's gonna be received here, because it's like, again, it's like, what is the thing is that when we do start to become more emotionally aware, commonly, our bodies, especially as a cause of threat, it's like almost kind of another angle to all of this, is like you have to deal with some of the final bosses of the journey of emotional awareness and attunement. Because the thing about trauma is that when we start to attune to our body, or that we start to experience more of our emotions, and that we do start to feel like any other feelings except numb and sad and kind of disconnected to the world, our bodies receive signals that say, hey, you're at risk at getting hurt like you did before from the trauma, right? Because you're going back to your baseline of your feelings before all of the trauma.
Right.
even if you don't recall when that trauma happened, right? So the final boss, in a sense, is your body doubling down to trying to convince you there is no hope. And it's trying to double down and saying there is like all these things because it's trying to pull you back into the numbness, into the pain. Because it's convinced that you feeling numb, you feeling disconnected, although you may not want that anymore or it doesn't benefit you like it once did, will still feel more comfortable than you feeling even a slither of the pain you felt from emotional pain you experienced when you experienced trauma.
Okay.
So our bodies think that with us getting better, I know this is going to be a kicker for a lot of people. Bear with me, everyone. That when we get better, or when we're leaning into our recovery, that's when like it's not linear. It's not where it's like you're on the journey of the up and up. A lot of times you're going to feel a lot worse before you start feeling better because your body thinks that it's at risk again to getting hurt like you initially did when you first experienced trauma, and it's trying to sway you away from going that way. But the only way through, or the only way is through. So when you start to feeling this discomfort, I encourage for you or for anyone to, like, again, depends on the person, depends on the space, depends on the resources and so forth, is that I encourage you to allow space for that emotional expression and space to talk about what you're going through. Because in these moments, your body is screaming that it wants safety and security, and it doesn't feel that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that similar to what you're going through?
Yeah. I mean, even right now, I'm like super on edge.
Yeah,
Just
I
sitting
could
here.
imagine. Because I can imagine this is prime in a very vulnerable state that you're sharing with everyone, because this is truly the process. As much as people may think, oh no, I'm getting worse, I'm like, no, it's that you're feeling, period. And what I like to call this is the awkward place between your old comfort zone and your new comfort zone. I like to call this the teenage years of feeling.
Yay, teenage years again. Fucking fun.
And this time, though, it's not just surviving through it, but you're feeling, surviving against it, but you're feeling through it to where your body starts to learn, I can feel these things and my life isn't threatened by feeling these things now. And it's actually processing and developing emotional inventory. And in doing so, it is learning so that you over time will not feel such intensity when these waves of emotion and feelings wash over you. This is why I tell clients, or when they tell me and they ask such an infamous question of, will it feel like this forever? My statement is, I don't think so. And I've seen it so many times that this isn't the case. However, you have to get through it. You have to go through it to grow through it. And that's why the goal of therapy isn't to feel better, to kind of come back to the initial point. It's that you're trying to learn to manage the feelings as they come, rather than just stopping, rather than just avoiding, rather than just engaging in actions to avoid and disconnect and not feel these things. and that eventually you'll become more familiar with how to handle these emotions, and they won't overcome you and all consume you in the future. But you have to start somewhere.
All right. I mean, I hear what you're saying, so
I wonder how this will come up with for you in your next therapy session.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to remember it. I mean, this is, like I said, this list
Oh,
keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger about how. Like I said, at first I was like, we just need to dig into this. It's going to probably take maybe a few months to get to like see where we're going. But now I'm like, dude, you're going to need a fucking excavator, and this is going to take years before I'm going to see any positive progress. Like I said, this is why it's starting to seem insurmountable, because it just seems like the upward swing is further away.
well, I think that I really think that you are on your journey more than ever. But I think what's the best thing about you being in therapy is that now you're not in a space of where you're doing it alone, and you're gonna create a rapport and a consistency with a therapist. And I cannot emphasize enough that that can be very helpful for the journey, because a lot of times in these times, and I'll say this even for myself, because a lot of times I kept on saying, like, why can't my friends, why can't these people all be there for me like this, right? I'm like, because now that I understand and I've gained better understanding, is that a lot of times and a lot of people don't know what's going on in themselves. And they're very not attuned to their emotions, and they're not attuned to what's going on with them. And a lot of times people may avoid or distance themselves from being in these spaces. So this is why I say to my clients a lot, because a lot of my clients will be like, well, my family, my friends are out there living and they're happy and they're fine. And I was like, how do you know that? Because of what you see? A lot of times people don't even know what's going on or connected to their body. The thing is that you are so aware that you are in treatment to get the skills to better manage this, and you will ultimately actually be living, rather than a lot of times with folks that are disconnected from their emotions are just merely existing. And that's why they're like, I don't know why this is. I don't know what's going on in the big picture. This is why a lot of people, and I don't care what anyone says or thinks about Asteria with this one, this is why people lean a lot into factors like communities and spiritual backgrounds and so forth very blindly, because what they're looking for is guidance, because they don't know how to guide self. And to guide self and to be self-aware requires vulnerability and emotional, and it can risk emotional wear and tear. And do I think just even my personal journey, like that, even right now, hell yeah, I feel depressed, right? But I'm so proud of myself. And keep in mind, for anyone's listening and they're like, blah, 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 being a therapist, it had nothing to do with becoming a therapist of this too much. I have also been in my own personal therapy on and off since for like going into 19 years. Whether I was seeing a therapist or I was doing, my own emotional awareness and journey, is that it's going to take time and it's going to take energy. And in all of my journey, I have changed the dialogue that I talk to myself in such a severe and significant way that when I am feeling lows, they don't feel nearly as intense as they once did.
Okay.
Not by a long shot. Like right now, if I was in this depressive episode, and I've been diagnosed with depression for let's see, going on like 14 years now. In that this used to just knock me out, and I would say the most ruthless things to myself, the meanest things to myself. And over time of challenging self-dialogue and allowing and finding safety and security in my life, even in the midst of a depressive episode right now, to which I still would just have cry spells and I don't feel the greatest, I am still hearing internally a lot of kindness. Like, I have not been on top of doing my daily exercise, and before I would be so harsh on myself. I'd say the meanest things to myself. But when I tried to attempt to go on a walk yesterday, I could hear such kindness coming from an internal space of like, hey, like, take it slow. You don't have to walk fast. You can just go at your own speed. Like, it's okay if this is hard right now. Like, you're doing great, right? And it was so comforting because I wasn't even asking for that from myself. It just was coming up naturally. And in that moment, I patted myself on the back because I was like, this was me. This is a result of me challenging the way that I talk to myself. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, talking to myself, that talking to yourself is not impactful. It doesn't matter how you talk to yourself. I was like, the way you talk to yourself is one of the most crucial fucking things on this planet.
Right.
There's a quote that I love, and I will share it with you, and I'll share it with everyone, and I'll say it to the end of time. The quote is from Bruce Lee, of all people.
Oh,
He said, don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and they cast spells. That's why it's called spelling, which I just kind of enjoy. Then he says, change the way you speak about yourself and you can change your life. What you're not changing, you're also choosing.
Right. I get that last part.
The thing that is so and I know this is really hard for anyone that is currently experiencing a lot of self-hatred or a lot of self-judgment or so forth, and it may not make sense to you right now. That's okay. Thanks for even giving me a listen to what I'm saying. As a notorious recovering self-hater and a person that is attempting good enoughness is that the way that you speak to yourself is so crucial, because you are around yourself more than you will be around anyone on this planet. You are guaranteed to go to your bed with yourself every night, right? And
Yes.
the people that you surround yourself with, including yourself, is crucial to the quality of your mental health. Because I like to treat myself like my partner. And if I treated myself as my partner, and I had my partner say the meanest things to me day in and day out. As somebody who's also been in an emotionally abusive relationship where I had a lot of emotional neglect and emotional disconnect, and I was hurting, and I was believing all the things my ex-partner used to tell to me. Just merely being around him as often as I was. If I would believe that being around him and he was just saying it, who's to say that that's not the equal impact to when I'm hearing it coming from myself, right? So you don't have to believe yourself when you start to try to challenge the things that you say to yourself. I wholeheartedly will say that I did not believe a lick of the words of kindness that I would try to give to myself, especially in the first the first 6 months of me doing it. It was getting better throughout the process, but what it needed was consistency and me saying the same thing. And it doesn't have to be in a toxic, positive kind of way, where it's like, wow, you're so fantastic, because it's hard and uncomfortable, especially if you're not accustomed to saying nice things about yourself. Start off with saying something neutral about yourself. It's like, perhaps let's just say you don't like your hands for whatever reason. And instead of saying like, oh God, I have such ugly or horrific hands or so forth, you can say instead, it's like, I have these hands and I need them to be able to accomplish my goals and to reach out to people, and connecting with people is important to me. So these hands help me achieve connection. When you say things like that, and you start to consistently say that over and over again, maybe practicing it, saying it once per day, every day at 4 p.m. Or twice per day, when you wake up, when you go to bed. When you start to do these things on a physiological, biological level, the parts in your brain that have been reinforced with these negative connotations that you have with yourself start to lose their power over time, guaranteed. And after a while, and it won't be overnight, I'm sorry to tell anyone, as much as people like, I wish I had relief yesterday. The negative view that you have for yourself didn't start in you overnight, and you unlearning and relearning a different perspective of yourself is not going to happen overnight. But it's going to take consistency and as much willpower as you're willing, or that your body's willing to extend to you. And it's not going to be perfect, because there's no perfection here. It doesn't exist. Perfectionism is a form of addiction. It doesn't exist. It's all about practice.
Now, what if, because here's the problem I personally have, is you can say all the nice things about yourself all day, every day, but then when you start getting the negative stuff from outside sources, how do you fight that?
When you start to receive this from outside sources, this is that awareness that I was trying to say. At first, of course, you're still going to give so much weight to external areas of the world. It's just going to be a part of the process. When you start to hear these things from external sources, it's important to allow yourself to do a skill, and this is what it's called. The skill is called checking the facts. Because a lot of times, when we hear these things, we take it so at face value that we don't challenge it, right? So we start to think about, we have to do an action that's called checking the facts. So many emotions and actions are set off by our thoughts and interpretations of events not by the events themselves. I will say that again. Many emotions and actions are set off by our thoughts and interpretations of events, not by the events themselves. So, our emotions can also have a big effect on our thoughts about events. When we instead are examining our thoughts and checking the facts of what's happening, it could help us change our emotions over time. So, how do we check the facts, right? This, for anyone that may not know, what I'm going to be doing is an emotional regulation skill, free of charge to anyone that would like to just start. Go grab your pen, go grab your pencil, your writing utensil. This one's on the house, okay? And this is what is called a DBT skill. And for anyone that doesn't know what DBT stands for, that means dialectical behavior therapy. Okay? But that doesn't matter too much what that means for right now.
Okay.
Just know that this is an emotional regulation skill. And this is to help when it comes to when we're getting messages from external sources and it still is holding so much emotional intensity and weight onto us. Because again, if many of our emotions or actions are set off by our thoughts and interpretations of events and not by the events themselves, that means wherever our emotions and our thoughts are and our interpretations of events can influence the intensity of the emotions that we experience. So when we engage in an action like this over time, it won't be as emotionally charged or impactful to us. And because of that, we can start to challenge and change it easier with time. But we need to do an action like emotional regulation during these times first. So this is how you do it. I'm going to break it down into 6 steps. Okay? 1, ask the question, what is the emotion I want to change? Okay? So let's go back into the format of the event impacts our thoughts, which impacts our emotions. Okay? But what we're trying to do is that we're trying to examine our thoughts and check the facts so we can change our emotions. So what we're going to do instead is that we're going to see the event, ask what emotion I want it to change when this event happens, which will then prompt changes in our thoughts after a while. Okay? So first question to ask is, what is the emotion I want to change? So this is where I'm going to ask you, Kilton. Let's say somebody says something to you that's emotionally invoking or invokes feelings, let's just even say to like loneliness.
Okay. Right.
So in an event where somebody says something or does something, and you are experiencing an uncomfortable or like then you have an interpretation of the event that causes a wave of uncomfortable emotions for you.
Mm-hmm.
First question, ask yourself, what is the emotion you want to change when events like this occur?
Now, emotion, we mean like the physical stuff, like the pit of the stomach stuff and all that, right?
You like the physical one, or you could also say in the feelings wheel, as like of like what is emotion / feeling. Okay, because again, they go hand in hand in that if you're feeling something and it invokes this emotional physiological discomfort, or you're experiencing this discomfort and you realize it's connected to emotion, they can go hand in hand, right?
Right.
So ask yourself, what is the emotion / feeling you want to change when events like this occur.
Okay. Got it.
Okay? So that'll be part 1. Part 2 would be then ask yourself, what is the event prompting? What is the event prompting my emotion? So describe the facts you observe through your senses. Most importantly, try to challenge judgments, absolutes, and black and white descriptors. So instead of, let's just say somebody says something, right? Let's just say they say a comment about your character, right? And that causes the interpretation is that, like, oh, they think this way of me and now I feel like shit, right?
Right.
Instead, ask yourself, what is the event that happened that prompted this emotion? So the event is this person did this, and say the facts alone. They said this, not instead of saying they were saying this in order to try to hurt me. Because what you're doing is you're trying to apply black and white descriptors of they are for sure doing this. They're absolutely doing this. And they're doing this out of judgment of self or judgment, whatever the case may be, what's doing it. Just identify the facts of what happened. That's 2. Okay? Then 3 is ask the question, what are my interpretations, thoughts, and assumptions about the event? So think of how your body automatically interpreted, or what your body automatically thought or assumed happened to these events, and then slow down and think about other possible interpretations that could be happening. Practice looking at various and other sides of the situations and other points of view. And test your interpretations and assumptions to see if they fit the facts. So, a lot of times, and I want to make this very clear, I'm not to disregard your feelings when these types of events happen to you, Kilted, or to anyone that relates to this scenario. However, a lot of times when people say things that may come across that they're trying to hurt us, a lot of times it's a reflection of themselves and their emotional discomfort, and that they're trying to project their pain elsewhere so they don't have to sit with it. That's a lot of the times, if not a high 90% of the times.
Gotcha.
However, I don't want to disregard that it still doesn't hurt when people project that onto us. I have clients telling me they hate me. And I have to sit there and I have to slow down, because the human in me is like, oh, that really hurt. It's all like, they really must hate me. And I'm like, no. Let me ask myself, what is the emotion I want to change? Or the feeling I want to change? It's like, well, I want to change feeling hurt when somebody says this to me. And the events that happen is somebody is they told me that they hated me in the middle of session, right?
Right.
That's what happened. And I have to then ask, what was my interpretation and my thoughts? It's like, at first I thought that they really may have hated me or had such intense emotional, feelings towards me. But I have to but in taking a step back and thinking of other possible interpretations, it's that, well, we're also in a therapy session, right? We're in a room that promotes emotional safety and a lack of judgment and so forth. So maybe this person is also feeling safe enough to share that they hate me, because that's not a common thing that in open socialized areas that we could just tell one another, like, I hate you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that they're sharing this as a starting point of what's truly going on with them, and they just don't have the connection or the awareness of what's going on. So this is their angle, right? So then this goes into the fourth step of asking the question, am I assuming a threat? Am I assuming that by doing this is an attempt to hurt me? What I have to label is what is attempting to harm me, right? And assessing the probability that the threatening event could occur. Like, I can be hurt anytime I socialize, anytime I interact with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that I have to check in. Is like, even if that is a threat that's happening, am I in a space that to challenge? Oh, there's many other possibilities of what is causing that threat to myself, or what I'm summarizing as a threat to myself. Do I have the energy? Do I have the ability to manage that and process that right now? This is also really important for us to check in with ourselves if we really have the ability to be in spaces of emotional vulnerability, right? And rather than just forcing ourselves to keep being social and keep being in these places that we risk that. So again, ask, am I assuming that there's a threat, or can I label what could be a possible threat? Can I handle that right now? Or am I able to be in a space to challenge that there's other possibilities of what's going on, to minimize that this threat is personal? Because a lot of times it's not personal. The next question is, because it's just a lot of asking. And asking questions, a lot of the times, rather than putting periods and saying things are fast, and instead of doing that and asking questions instead, that is known in therapy world to minimize suffrage. Known. Ask questions a lot more rather than just accepting everything as is.
Like, if a situation happens, like if you're like, somebody says something, you ask them, like, why do you feel, or like ask them why they said that, or like, what do you mean?
Ask yourself, like, instead of saying like, oh, well, let's just say like the event is they called me a piece of shit, I felt like this way, so I must be a piece of shit, right? But then kind of sitting there and kind of taking a step back of like, why do they think, like, why would they think something like that? It's like, and I'm like, am I really like this? And if there's things that I want to change, what do I want to change for myself, rather than what this person would want me to change in self? Or asking questions of like, it's like, I wonder what about my behavior was something activating in themselves, or what's going on with them personally.
Right.
Because again, the things that activate people is unpredictable all of the time. That's why when people are like, the approach of like when somebody gets hurt and somebody's,
sorry, I muted the wrong one. Yeah, sorry, Hysteria, to cut you off. But Kintsugi came in and said, hello, I noticed that you had therapy as a tag. Yes. Am I a therapist? No, I am not, but Asteria here is the person that is joining me.
I am a therapist.
Yes, she is a therapist. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat, and we will do our best to answer your questions and help you out.
Welcome. And in addition to that, right now, what we're talking about, if you're just joining us right now, is that we're going over an emotional regulation skill. So that we can try to minimize internalized suffrage that can come as a result of just because um we're trying to challenge the experiences of self-hatred and self-judgment, and trying to give our brains a chance of trying to engage in rewiring to being accepting of empathy and self-acceptance.
Yes, and they say, very cool, I'm a therapist myself. So
Oh,
just nice to
hello.
see representation on the platform.
Oh, welcome. It's so lovely to see other therapists here. Oh, okay, so then I'll say this. We're going over the DBT skill of checking the facts. Because we're trying to talk about in the CBT sense of challenging thoughts and behaviors related to self-hatred. So right now we're on step 5 of doing checking the facts for DBT skills. So the next step in this is ask the question of what's the catastrophe. So this is really important because a lot of times people don't step back and saying what is like what is going on right now that is feeling like that is catastrophizing to us, really. We just sort of like, oh, that's uncomfortable, and we kind of just move on, right? Or we
Hmm.
just absorb it, try to keep pushing through it, right?
Right.
But it's important to like imagine, like when you see this feeling happening, also imagining yourself coping well in this situation. So when you're in this space, right, and you slow down, if you allow your mind to go to a place of like checking of like of like checking in of like describing in detail what could be the worst outcome that could genuinely come out of this in a reasonable way, um and identifying it, then trying to describe ways that you would cope with this situation, you're starting to set up yourself for success in the future of like, hey, I already practiced this. And the possibility, like, what if something really big happened, right? Oh, I remembered that when this happened, I can do skills like I can, like, when I hear this, I can start to do breathing exercises, or I can ask if I can step away for a second and get some space from this. And when you start to set yourself up for success in a way of identifying skills for the future, then you start to find ways to kind of already have skills in your back pocket. So when you're in that situation that happens, your body's like, oh, we already were prepared for this. Like, go ahead, reach into your toolbox. Here's the thing to do.
Yeah. And Kintsugi says, yeah, you want to try to build on the self efficacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what you're doing right now is that you're also developing on the foundation of self-trust skills and self-attunement. And a lot of times, like we talked about, when it comes to emotional pain, like in the example Kilter was saying, it's like, what if you're challenging and you're doing a lot of these changings and trying to reformat the way that we talk to ourselves, but what if a situation and an external space tries to, like, could be threatening or could be impactful to that? What happens in those times is that there is that lack of foundation in like self, contentness, self-trust, right? And when you start to practice the skills such as like checking the facts, you're showing your body of like, hey, I'm here to show up for you. Hey, I'm a reliable resource. I'm a reliable person, right? I'm here with you. So instead of feeling that, overabundance feeling, let's say, of shame, guilt, isolation, and so forth, this happens when you start to practice a skill like this one. After a while, your body's like, oh, I got me though.
Yeah.
And I'm supporting me. And after a while, if these things happen in an external space, they won't be so emotionally of invoking for you as they might have once done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then this goes into the last point of checking the facts, where it's asking the question, does my emotion and or feeling and the intensity of it fit the actual facts? This is, I feel, a very crucial step, because again, what we were talking about earlier is about trying to manage emotional intensity and the parameters of our emotions, right? And as an impact of trauma, and again, trauma is such a misunderstood concept, is that if we were not given environments to develop self-attunement, self-trust, emotional awareness, and emotional regulation, that these can in themselves be reflections of trauma. Because again, if we don't have these leave us susceptible to pain and hurt and suffrage, right?
Right.
So when we do the action of asking ourselves, does my emotion and or its intensity fit the actual situation at hand, rather than what our brains try to interpret the intensity of what the situation is,
Well, wouldn't
then
that
we
be different for everybody? Because, you know, like, let's see, how can I explain it? If someone like hits a point that's something that's bothered them a lot, and then the outside like stimuli that comes in and reinforces it when they already don't like it, so it's like, yes, they may think, yes, my reaction was warranted because it affects me a lot harder than, you know, it might affect somebody else. You know, it's
well,
like, like, how can I explain it? Let's say you go up to somebody, you give them a pat on the back, and you're just like, you know, whatever, how's it going? You pat them on the back, and, you know, a lot of people would just be like, oh, you know, that's, yeah, whatever, a pat on the back. But if you go up and do that same pat on the back to someone who's got like a really bad fucking sunburn, you did the same action towards two different people, but one person is just affecting a lot. So their reaction, like, you may do that to them, like pat them on the back, and they freak the fuck out, and you're like, well, that's unwarranted. But to them, it completely is warranted because they are affected differently.
well, that's going to look differently for every person. That's why it's like, but we can't control everybody. We can't control anybody, actually. We can only control ourselves,
but
right?
I'm saying if they do something towards, you know, or if they do something to us, and then you react, and you go through the thought process, oh, does my reaction match the scenario? And what if you sit there and go, yes, it very much well did?
Well, then that's where you're at with like checking the situation, because again, it's like, that's why it's so important of checking the situation at the foundation of what's truly going on, rather than how our thoughts, how our emotions and actions are set off by our interpretations of the situations rather than the situation at hand. So of course, if a person factually has a sunburn, right, and they have a reaction at their level and so forth, and then they say, I have a sunburn, this is why I'm reacting this way, right? Then that goes back into checking the facts of the situation. It's like, if I did this to somebody else and they didn't have a sunburn, and they reacted away, and this person with a sunburn reacted this way when I patted them on the back. It's like, well, yes, because they have a sunburn, right? So it's like, it's about checking in of like, well, it's like, is it that the way that they're reacting to their sunburn is the problem, or is it that my relationship with their reaction to the sunburn, or like the way I impacted the sunburn, the problem at hand? These are two separate things.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that you have to check in about labeling what is emotionally invoking for you, so that you can be aware of what's happening for yourself, but also creating distance to saying what somebody else is doing is a definition of self. Because how they're reacting is a definition, a reflection of themselves, and yet we can still have emotional response to how they respond to us, but that does not mean the way they respond to us is facts.
Right. Kintsugi says there also comes to a point where you can fall into rationalization or intellectualization, but if you lean into those cognitive distortions, you're not operating in the wise mind to begin with.
Absolutely. See, this is a person that talking right up my alley with this one. Shout out to you. Because again, the thing is that many a times, because right now we're trying to find the balance between cognitive behavioral therapy skills and dialectic behavioral therapy skills. And the thing is that what we're trying to do in all of this is that we're trying to achieve in that sixth step of like asking, does my emotion and or its intensity fit the actual effects, is that we're then leaning to another DBT skill, which is called wise mind. And wise mind is where we're trying to access the space between our rational mind and our emotional mind. So in doing these steps of checking the facts, we are trying to see the space in both what is the situation at hand by checking the facts of what's happening, and also checking in our emotional space and seeing the space that they overlap with one another. And then from there, we're trying to then in that wise mind, we're trying to act upon that space that is shared between each of these states of mind.
Gotcha. They also said even the tool is check the facts. The overarching goal is to fully embody and leverage skills of our rationality and emotions to make the best possible decisions when moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So this goes back to when we were starting this conversation today of why using skills to better understand our relationship with emotions can also minimize suffrage in our lives. Because when we do stuff like that and we start to understand our relationship with emotions as it comes up in our mental state, and also in the way that we interpret it being experienced in other people, we can expand our awareness of what's emotionally occurring for ourselves. And in doing that, that gives a better chance of strengthening our wise mind to start to develop more on that emotional piece, and allow the space of intellect to also enter the conversation. Look at them individually of like, this is the rationale of what's going on, but this is, or like, and not buts, but and this is what I'm feeling at the same time, and this is the space where they both share a state of mind together. Because again, if we continuously look through the lens of the world in just our emotion or just our intellectual side, we're missing out on the full picture, and that can leave us in a lot of spaces of confusion, guilt, shame. You know, just I like to just use the famous word I said a bunch of times tonight. I wish it was like a tally of it, of suffrage. It just leaves us suffering. Like, but we as humans are like, it's really important that we see all these elements because they all play a role in in our experiences.
Yeah, and it seems that Casey and KY, thank you for the follow. It seems like though over my adult life, just kind of thinking about what you said there, is I've kind of noticed that I went from using the rational side of my brain to handle emotional situations, and then there was a brief period where I crossed, I mean very brief period, where it was like the wise mind where they did overlap, and then now I'm stuck on the emotional side of things.
Sure.
And
I think that's really important to know. Like, I really do believe that's an important factor to understanding what's going on for you right now. And this is where I think is the important piece of like what you need to bring into your own sessions, because of course if you're leaning dominantly into one, again in DBT words, if you're leaning into one way or another, it's like of course there's too much intensity and it's leaving you in a state of suffrage and dysregulation, right?
Because it seems like when I was dealing with things on the rational side, more people were upset with the way I would handle a situation. And then now on the emotional side, I'm more upset with the way I'm handling situations. And not so much the other people are being hurt by it. So, yeah, it's just, it's let's say interesting.
Yeah.
How those two different mindsets happen to work out. I don't know if you want to call them a mindset, but you know what I mean.
I think that there's a lot of productivity, and I don't want to define that for you. You let me know what you think. But I think that this was an important thing for us to go over today. Because it sounds to me that you had gained that awareness of like, hey, what, like maybe that is what's going on, of like maybe I'm too, although you were so accustomed to leaning into rational mind for so long, now you're trying, and now it's shifted in the swing of the pendulum into emotional mind in that intense way. And so now it could have been very similar in the intensity of that discomfort you felt in purely rational mind. Now the difference is that you're just feeling it now.
Yeah.
Right? But what you're trying to achieve is the space in between. Which I think by kind of going in and talking about that with your own individual therapist, I think that could increase a lot more hope and likelihood that things can change when you get into that kind of in between space, or in the gray space of it all.
Okay. Let's see. Kintsugi says a good question to ask when it comes to emotion is what the emotion is actually communicating to you in the moment.
That's a great question.
And how does one do that? Because like the problem I'm having honestly right now is I'm trying to understand it fully, but it's the whole difference between emotion and feeling. So, because once we broke that up, like I kind of get them mixed up a bit.
Okay.
You know, from time to time, I'm like, was this or that? And like you keep explaining it, but for some reason, it's going to take. This is one of those things where my brain is just like, no, you're going to have to hear it 8 million times before it finally sets in.
I don't blame you that it's going to take a second. And again, for anyone that's joining us later into the journey, is that we're bringing up the mentalization-based piece of understanding about emotions and feelings. So again, this is in the lens of mentalization. about emphasizing the differences between emotions and feelings, and that emotions are the bodily reactions that our body has programmed to specific stimuli, whereas feelings is the conscious experience of what's going on during that emotional activation. So again, emotions are the signals that our bodies are sending to us, whether in the different ways that shows up in our physical form, but our feelings are what we equate to those signals, or the collection of those signals of what is going on with our body. And then from there, once we start to strengthen and supporting that, we can start to ask, like, where is this coming from? And like, are asking questions of like, where have I felt this before? Or is this my body responding to these signals as it's shown up in my past? Is it really equating to the situation at hand now?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
let's see. They're asking, so is there a particular example you have in mind? Well, yeah, because I'm just trying to think of a situation that had happened to me, and so you were saying, when it comes to emotion, is what the emotion is. So the emotion. So I had a situation where I was basically told, I mean, it wasn't verbatim, but the message put out was, I don't want you here, go away, or we don't want you here, but like, go away. And it was very hurtful. And so based off what Hysteria is saying, emotion wise, I felt like that sinking feeling. I wanted to cry in the moment because I was kind of in a vulnerable state. And yeah, so emotionally, that's what I was feeling. And then feelings wise, well, I know maybe I should change that wording around. Emotionally, I was experiencing, not feeling. I was experiencing these emotions and feeling these feelings of sadness, and it goes back down to that the feelings wheel. What the hell was it called? Feelings wheel, yeah. And so it goes sadness, and then it went into loneliness, which basically abandonment. It was probably around that same same thing. Yeah, use the feelings wheel. They were saying, but yeah. So the feelings wheel. It was sad, loneliness, abandonment. If you want to go out that way, I was able to remember that easily enough without having it pulled up.
Perhaps like that's also a skill like that could be beneficial to kind of bring up and like incorporate more on a daily basis for you, of like understanding and putting labels to your emotions. So it's like, if your body was giving you these signals of like you didn't want to be there, you felt tearful, these types of things, it's like you can start to say, if this is what my body's telling me right now, this is what I think is the feeling I'd
That's correct, Kinzugi.
equate to these signals my body is giving me right now.
Yeah, I'm
And
probably gonna have
that
to look into that stuff a lot more, especially lately with work this week, because I mean, I don't know what it is. I got to figure out how to dig into this one, but just like pulling up and walking into my office, like especially today, like I actually was like, I walked up to my desk and I said, I was like, I feel so shitty. I feel dirty, physically dirty standing here. And I was like, and I actually said to him, I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I in this building? As someone with free will, I can just leave and not have to deal with this crap. I mean, yes, there will be consequences to it. But I actually legit had the, argument with myself. It's like, you can't just not come in here anymore. You can just go away. So but that was kind of tough. So I need to figure out what's going on there. Let's say Kentucky says, so what I'm really hearing is that in the moment of vulnerability, you had presumably reached out and were told to go away. Yeah, pretty much. I reached out in a way because I was in need of connection. And I mean, this has kind of been a problem over the last 2 years. I mean, we've discussed it to like endlessly on here, it seems. And it's been one of my big problems. I'm like reaching out for companionship of sorts, whether it be like romantic relationships or friendships, and it's just there is a wall I can't get past. And I talked to Asteria about this before. There's more off stream, but I hit a point where I kind of broke down because I gotta hold it together while I say it now.
But you don't have to.
Yes, I do.
That's the thing.
I'm hosting a show. I have to. And
says who? That's what I'm trying to say.
Says the professional. So basically, the thing was, I got to a point where it's like I'm noticing how much effort I'm putting out. And this one kind of like really, I had something to anchor it to in like the science world, because I was just taking physics. So the whole thing with physics I was running through my head is like, you put energy into a system, you're going to get energy out in some sort of something. It doesn't, you can't gain or lose energy. It just gets put into different forms. And so I kept asking myself, why is it I'm putting out so much energy into these things and there's nothing coming out of it? It's just I'm dumping energy into this, like, whatever it is, my job, school, like relationships, yada, yada, yada. And I feel like nothing's coming back. It's like some sort of energy absorbing paint or something that you'd like see on like a B-2 bomber. It just absorbs radar and it never comes back out. Anyway, let's see. It seems like that you valued those friendships and connections. I did. I lost a lot of friendships and connections. And I'm trying to establish new ones as a grown man in his mid-30s, and it just seems like it is impossible, because everyone my age now is married with kids, and I can't relate to anybody anymore. And then, I can relate to the younger folks, but they go, oh, that's the old guy, and they don't really want to hang around with you too much. So it's exhausting.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting, and that's why I think it's so crucial. That's something to start. So for anyone, I'm sorry, I'm gonna just kind of say it for what it is. That Kilted has started his therapy journey. So once again, fantastic, very proud of Kilted. And has his second session coming up. So I would encourage I encourage you to. This is what to like again, what you do in therapy is up to you. Like, I'm not gonna say it's like, if this is something that is pressing on you, I'm like, that's a great place to talk about it, truly.
Yeah,
because
we did talk about it, but it was just, because it was this past Friday, so almost a week ago, was my first session. But that's the, like I said, you can't really do much. That's the introductory. God damn it, that's a hard word to say. But anyway, that's the intro session.
Yeah, I know.
What are you here for? What's your background? Blah, 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 blah. So we didn't, I explained it. She's like, okay, yeah. But that one's essentially, we have to wait till next week before we could probably really dig into it.
Yeah, of course. You just started.
Yeah.
It's gonna take time.
Yeah. Again, Kentucky, there you go, reaching out for companionship. So the sadness and loneliness highlight how much you truly valuable meaning relationships. Yes. So your emotions and feelings are communicating to you that this value of meaningful relationships and connections aren't being met. Exactly. Precisely. Yes. And unfortunately, I saw this crap coming from a mile away. I mean, a long way off, and I was like, "Hey, this is going to be a problem." And I've been trying to fix it and get ahead of it, but it just a fruitless endeavor, unfortunately. That being said, we are past our time. And we are going to have to wrap it up there, unfortunately. Kintsugi, I do appreciate you stopping by. It sounds like you would be very... I'm suggesting you come back because it seems like it'd be good to have you around, but only if you want to.
No, but the same, like, because again, if just like we emphasize in here, it's like you're always welcome to share what you like to share. However, if you're not getting paid for it,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
respect,
You're a therapist. If
like,
you're not getting paid for it, then you don't want to do it. Then don't do it because I don't want to sit here and design freaking foundations for people's homes for free. And thank you very much for the follow.
yeah.
And
It's like,
I'm gonna put
but
the
always
brain
love
back
to
together.
hear coming from therapists. I love to hear from therapists to even just talk about concepts because, again, like for you or for anyone that joined us later in the chat, is that I like to use this space to kind of go over talking about topics of mental health, discussing what diagnoses are, though we do not do diagnosing here. And again, other boundaries that we talked about at the beginning of the stream, but ultimately that we could talk about various concepts related to various things in mental health. I know that resources are expensive, some are hard to come by. I like to use this space with Kilted to talk about different concepts, question things, ask things, get insight from other folks, kind of support one another. There's a lot of benefits in regards to that community piece, excuse me. So tell your friends, have your friends tell their friends, come in, ask questions, to identify what you would like us to talk about from what the knowledge that you know, and in that community we can extend support to one another. So
Yes.
feel free to join us as we continue to do Therapy Thursday.
Yeah. Let's see. Kenzuki says, yeah, I'll be happy to swing by when I have time. For sure, I work with clients struggling with addictions and high trauma, so this is a nice change of pace. Yeah, and feel free if you would like to join the Discord. There should be a very small link. I don't know why it's so damn small, but it's below the stream. There should be like a really small one that says, I think it's like on this side even. That says, Discord. You can join that, and I even put like a little text channel in there that says like mental health topics. So if you would like to, go for it. If you got anything you want to dump in there, have at it. And then I know Asteria will look in there from time to time if anything does show up, even though it's rare. So you guys might be able to even hit it off really nicely. And then Darth Jammin showed up. He gives us the shush symbol and says, I'm just here for the hot tea. Is that an inside joke I'm unaware of, the hot tea?
Tea is hot. Tea
All
can
right.
also be cold.
Yeah. Tea can also be coffee.
It could also be coffee. That's true.
Explain to me the difference between coffee and tea. Unless one comes from a leaf, one's a bean. Besides that, I don't know.
Beans.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Thank you very much, y'all, for stopping by. Again, if you are just passing through late in the game here, you are more than welcome to join the Discord and drop your topics into the mental health chat area, or write them down and then bring them back next Thursday, maybe. Asteria said she might be taking next week off, so that won't be playing by ear.
Yeah, we'll play it by ear. I'll let y'all know again in a very transparent, open way. I am taking next week off for my own mental health and support in my job. So if I get enough rest throughout the week, and I feel like getting closer to Wednesday or Thursday that I have the spoons to jump in and doing that support, I'll go ahead and let Kilton know. We'll just keep on going from there. If not, then I can only imagine that Kilted will have a fantastic stream of something, of one of the games or so forth, and we could still even, I don't mind doing a stream that's much more lighthearted, where we could play a game or something like that. Because again, rest is productive too for anyone that is in here, or if you got a message otherwise, but we do need rest and we do need downtime too.
Yes. Alrighty, and as far as my streaming schedule goes, we might be switching up Two Wheel Tuesday for anybody who's curious or interested in that. I will change the schedule if needed because school's starting, and I think I might be having class at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, so that basically will have to move it entirely, but we'll see. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Asteria, for stopping by. And we'll see you all later. Have fun, drink water, get some sleep, all that good stuff.
Yep, sounds good. Bye.
Bye, chat. Bye.